that we will have a 90-minute session. The entire 90 minutes, if I start talking, notwithstanding anything or save as otherwise provided, unless otherwise mentioned anywhere else in this act, it will be very boring. I thought I will give it a package of items which we can interact with each other. So with that backdrop, I have prepared this PowerPoint presentation. We will make it an exchange of ideas. It's not that it's going to be a one-way traffic of only me talking. We both will talk, but I request the participants to talk to me only. We come across these buzzwords: compliance, auditors, board of directors, and material information. Of course, the corporate governance is also seen as the buzzword on many fronts. And then the adapt. And we also find in the corporate segment, we find these dots scattered. On one hand, we find the board of directors. On one hand, we find someone who is an independent director on the board of directors. Why is he being called independent director? And on the other hand, we have somebody who has spent in money and started the corporate. Added to that, after the corporate has grown, we find it is connected to a very big gamut of people, very big gamut of outsiders known as all the stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? We are not getting into section 178 of the act. Stakeholders, your supplier, your customer, your employees, your board of directors, your lender, your shareholder, your debenture holder, your banker, even that stationery supplier, including your canteen services provider is a stakeholder. So everybody's interest is to be protected. In that direction, if we move, collectively, the board of directors have a few responsibilities hanging on their head. One is the disclosure, being very transparent. At the same time, they also have to align their corporate functions, not only with the provisions of the Companies Act 2013, also the other statutes. Mainly being the directors, collectively, the board of directors are held responsible and accountable to each stakeholder. If that be so, that's the reason, if we can recollect section 134 of the Companies Act 2013, where it talks about the director's responsibility statement, they make a statement. The board of directors collectively make a statement, sir, the company has complied with all the applicable laws. There, it takes a responsibility of telling everybody outside, sir, I have followed what is required. On the other hand, when the board does in its corporate function, they find new things like fraud coming up. There are many ways one can defraud. And for the first time, the Companies Act 2013, section 447 has defined the word fraud, which was not there in the earlier enactment. And how do you prevent the fraud? As well, are there any inbuilt checks and balances and then protective measures? Yes, there is. There is a vigil mechanism. There is a whistleblowing mechanism. Sir, something is likely to happen which is not good. So there is an orange signal when the train is passing by, which indicates that the next signal is going to be red. You have to stop. You have to remain alert. You have to just pick up your boot and then be ready and then prepare yourself for facing that. So that kind of a vigil mechanism, whistleblowing, always telling you if something is going wrong, there is an alert signal. Same time, the organization has to present itself. Now, the scope of the board of directors has increased. Increase in the sense, one is on the watching front. Two, the audit committee's role has also been expanded. And three, how can you prevent that fraud? In fact, you keep employees on a rotational basis. Friends, I can give you an example. If you go to nationalized banks, you find the cashiers being changed every 3 months. Of course, they get an allowance for handling the cash portion, and they do not keep the same cashier at the same place. They do not keep the same person in the credit department always. They keep changing. So employees on a rotational basis, one method of prevention of fraud. Because familiarity breeds contempt is one English proverb which we heard long back. And with that background, and then what is the other preventive step one you can take? You can do a screening at the time of recruitment, and then you can always keep a periodical reconciliation. Added to that, friends, nowadays we have everything at the press of a button. The whole world is comprised into this, 8 inches by 4 inches mobile phone. At the press of a button, you can talk to anybody on earth. And if that be the advancement of the technology, always you be prepared to take so much of preventive measures, even ensuring the cyber safety. Now, if that be the case, if for the company, if on one hand we have the board of directors responsible, and if I can just quickly tickle the mind of all the participants in BCom, we all had a question. BCom, BA, BBA, BBI, whatever be the branch my friends have passed through, BMS or whatever it is. What is the role of the board of directors? The board of directors have dual role to play. What is the dual role to play? On one hand, they act as agents of the shareholders. On the other hand, they act as the trustees of the company. So if that is the collective responsibility thrust on them, and they have to handle not only the stakeholders, also they have to handle the auditors. What do I mean by handling the auditors? They have to ensure that the auditors are satisfied with respect to the way the company's affairs are conducted, not only in financial, also other aspects which the auditor is having a right or responsibility to report on. So we will make today a combo of the recent amendments in the Companies Act, one from the audit angle and the other from the corporate angle. Now, the first slide of why I thought I can present to you this is with a major breakthrough. The breakthrough in the year 2020 when the Companies Amendment Act came in. In fact, this was contemplated right from the year 2017 at 19 onwards. Decriminalization. That is, instead of trying to prosecute somebody by asking him to be behind the bars, you are not going to make good of a past fraud or past wrongdoing. Instead, what you can do is you can impose on a monetary burden in such a way that they are always afraid of doing something which is not in line with. So what they have done, they have in fact decriminalized the Companies Act. They have in fact reduced the penalty, and they have started imposing the fine. And somewhere fine is eliminated, penalty is also brought in. So in this way, the decriminalization is brought in such that for small and very, very trivial non-compliance, people are not always put in the fear of being put behind the bars or imposition of very heavy amount of penalty. Next, one major point which I thought I can share with you is listed company. Friends, the Companies Act 1956 did not define the term listed company. Subsequently, there was an inference that any company which has its equity shares listed on the stock exchange was known as a listed entity. After that, the platforms opened up also for listing of debt securities, listing of ADR, GDR, and so many other things flew in. Now, the Companies Act 2013 has said that any entity which has listed any of its securities on the floor of a stock exchange shall be a listed entity. With the result, these listed entities are in fact required to comply with various compliance requirements under the LODR and all other related enactments. Now, to enable, minimize the compliance, at the same time ensure transparency, the recent amendment made in respect of listed entities, suppose there is a public limited company. It has not listed its equity shares, but it has listed the non-convertible debentures which it offered on a private placement basis on the floor of a stock exchange. It shall not be known as a listed entity. So much so, when there is a private limited company which has offered it non-convertible debentures on private placement basis, that shall also be not considered as a listed entity. And next is any public company which has listed its securities abroad, but which has not listed its securities in India, that will not be called as a listed entity. Added to that, any public limited company which has listed non-convertible debentures will also not be a listed entity, and where it has issued redeemable preference shares on private placement basis, that will also not be a listed company. In simple terms, if a company has issued any convertible instrument, it becomes a listed entity. So you come under the chapter 2 of the SEBI's LODR provisions, and wherever it is possible, where not much of compliance requirements are trusted on the minds of the board of directors for ensuring compliance. Next, another major change is rights issue is one of the sources of mobilization of funds for the company. Say a public issue and then going to the same shareholders and asking them to subscribe. Rights issue on preference basis, rights issue offered to all, and where the time period provided under the section 62(1) of the Companies Act, it said that minimum period it shall remain open for 15 days under section 62(1). Now, this is in fact too long a time for a company to realize its money, which the subscriber would have already provided for. Now, considering this, the lawmakers have reduced this 15 days to 7 days. This is one major recent amendment which is in favor of the corporates. Next is we find for the first time the provisions related to fast track merger, fast track business reconstruction, business reorganization by way of merger, demerger, amalgamation, etc. This was all being handled only by relatively bigger size companies and not small companies. Now the provisions, recent amendments have, that is fast track mergers have been extended also to facilitate startup company merging with another small company, or a small company merging with another startup company, a company merging its wholly owned subsidiary with itself. This is to facilitate corporates to enjoy the benefits of corporate restructuring, and also at the same time the process is completed in a relatively reduced span of time. Friends, I would like to may be aware, over a period of time, the definition of a small company has been undergoing substantial change, mainly with the intent to offer a helping hand to the domestic entrepreneurs to contribute more to the corporate, contribute more to the economy. With that intention, small company definition was in fact many years back, it was 25 lakhs, and that was increased over a period of time. Today it stands, a small company is one which has a paid up capital not exceeding rupees 200 lakhs. Not exceeding rupees 200 lakhs. Am I audible? Is there continuity? Deepti madam?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Paid up share capital not exceeding rupees 200 lakhs and the turnover not exceeding rupees 2000 lakhs. If I have to put it in our simple understanding terms, 2 crore is the capital limit and 20 crore is the turnover limit. Sir, I thought I can split it into two parts, one on the corporate side, the other on the audit side. We are now in the month of May. May, June, the crucial months for all the chartered accountants, not only in those in practice, also for the company secretaries in employment and in practice. This is the period of the audit. So you have a lot of pressure and time bound, restrictions in completion of the assignments on hand, both from the client side, also from the regulator side. So too busy with audit assignments on hand. The Act recently has made a few changes from the viewpoint of audit. First point is the auditor has to do some additional checks. What are the additional checks? One, the auditor shall ensure that records are maintained electronically. Now, Information Technology Act has provided for maintenance of records on electronic mode. Like you can keep it in a computer, you can keep it in a server, you can keep it in any other mode of equipment where data is preserved. Now the auditor is duty bound to ensure that the records are electronically kept. It is not only they are kept electronically. What do you mean by keeping it electronically? Keep all the accounts in a Word format? No. They are to be kept in such a way that edits and changes made to the records are visible. Edits and changes made to the records are visible, and you can keep a trail of where from the transaction has arisen and what are the changes it has undergone. If I have to put it in simple term, in future, simple Excel sheets will not be satisfying any auditor. The auditor is required to have an eye on the audit trail. An auditor is required to have an eye on the audit trail, get into the financial transactions and also the entries made into the books of account in an electronic mode by way of going through the trail and see where the actual proprietary information in respect of that transaction having been entered into the books of the company. We all know that we have the system of protecting the data entry by way of a password, and one password is given to the person who is doing the entry. There's another password provided to someone who is checking the entry. So the concept of maker checker also ensures that the records are properly maintained and they are not tampered with, and it is not possible for any outsider to have an access to the record. So this is one way. And the audit committee and the board of directors, in fact, they can keep a policy, they can keep a system, ensure that the electronic storage, electronic records are available for the auditor the way it is desired, and it is also possible for retrieval of such electronic records. If that be so, periodically, the audit committee or the board of directors, in fact, the audit committee, if the company has one, or the board of directors, or they can, in fact, entrust this responsibility to the person who is in charge of finance to submit a report to the board also periodically that adequate backup, adequate system is available, because the directors are giving a statement in their director's responsibility statement at the end of every year as a part of their director's report, stating that adequate internal checks and internal control measures are available in the company and are in working condition, were made available or in working condition. So to enable the board of directors to make this statement in an affirmative way, adequate periodical check on this is made. If that be the case, sir, I am having all my records in India, but my main server is outside India. Is it possible? Yes. You can have the main server outside India. Same time, ensure that you have a backup for the same in India, because the books of accounts are available in India. Next major and critical point is to prevent either inflow or outflow of funds out of the Indian country or into the Indian country for activities which are not desired. In fact, for that objective, the FEMA 1999, when it was promulgated and it came into effect from 2000, and the FEMA had various provisions related to management, and the provisions also included what are the steps you have to take when you have to go for a prior approval of RBI, post facto approval of RBI and all that. In the year 2002, a new enactment was brought in, and of course, with the power of enforcement was given with the Enforcement Directorate known as the Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002. Laundering, we are aware of the term, we know the meaning. This is a off-white color cloth, and when I do the laundering, this becomes white, right? So that's, yeah, I think enough example, that's a clear example, black turning into white. So I want to prevent something becoming which is acceptable, which is known. No, I have done an act which is not acceptable, and I am proving it to presenting it to everybody that it is an acceptable act. So it's a Prevention of Money Laundering Act, where the auditor will have to check and confirm that the company has not been a conduit or has not been a receiver or has not been a giver of any funds which is in violation of the provisions of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. That means the company was not used for any purpose which it was not desirable to be for. Next, the recent amendment also provided the auditor will ensure that all the financial transactions have undergone the right method of trail beneath it, right method of trail backing that particular financial transaction. So he is supposed to examine the entire financial trail, where the money has come from, who has paid, and is it a subsidiary company or is it a holding company? Is it an associate company? Is it within the limits prescribed under the act, or is it out of an agreement, or is it approved for such remittance either inward or outward? The entire trail shall be checked by the auditor. Of course, This provision was to come into force from 1st of April 2021. Now it has now been deferred that it shall come into effect from the 1st of April 2022. Nevertheless, it is desirable that we remain prepared for such thing to happen next year. Next, the Act has also made specific compliance to be checked in respect of dividend, which shall, of course, which has now been deferred for compliance with effect from 1st of April 2022. Additionally, in respect of investments falling under section 186, where the word both direct and indirect investment, directly and indirectly the word is used. So the auditor shall ensure that such type of investments or all the investments made by the company or received by the company as a recipient of investment shall stand complied with the related provisions. After the audit, we go to the board side. The board's report will also include a mention about whether any case has been filed by the company under the provisions of the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code of 2016 before any tribunal or any judicial authority. So much so, whether any case has been filed against the company by anybody else under the provisions of the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, if that be, a report of the same or information about the same shall be included in the report of the Board of Directors. Also, there is a mention, of course, in fact, this I have drawn from other seminars and other information available. One is the difference in valuation, where when you go for a settlement with one of the creditors, a banker or any other lender, where you go for a one-time settlement or a final settlement, and you are able to arrive at a valuation of your assets. And when you went to the same banker some years back for grant of sanction of the loan, what was the valuation? Of course, to some extent, you can give provision for the inflation and the market fluctuation. The substantial difference, if there is any in valuation, that shall also be reported in the report of the Board of Directors. We move on to another very, very critical area where the changes happened is in respect of the managerial remuneration. Now, this managerial remuneration is a very, very significant area because even the Companies Act 1956 provided for an overall limit and then sub-limit, and then it also introduced the concept of Schedule 13, and then it also introduced the concept of remuneration committee effective 8th of January 2008, sorry, 14th of January 2008 for recommending of payment to whole-time directors or executive directors or managing director in the event of a company suffering loss. Of course, we have seen all these provisions, much water has flown below the bridge. But recently, on 18th of March 2021, a few major changes have been brought in under the Schedule 5. Earlier, when we had the Schedule 5, major changes which happened 2 years back, 3 years back was with the approval of the shareholders, in fact, the remuneration paid to the directors can be doubled. The word was double, you can pay double the amount. But now that word double has been dropped, so you can pay any amount with the special resolution of the shareholders subject to few other conditions coming in. And now if we see the provisions of the Schedule 5 major amendments which have taken place, overall limits still remain within that 11%. But when there is no profit or inadequacy of profit, we are aware that the overall remuneration payable to directors is 11%, and where the company has one managing director, one whole-time director or one manager, the remuneration shall not exceed 5%. Where it has more than one managing director, one whole-time director, etc., it shall not exceed 10%. And where you have non-executive directors, etc., it shall not exceed 1%, including the independent directors. And no managing director, but only non-executive directors, all put together, it shall be 3%. And any change in this internally in these percentages, you require the special resolution. But what was seen is in respect of companies which are not having adequate profit or which are not earning any profit, the remuneration payable shall be as fixed by the effective capital as per part 2 of section 2 of the schedule 5. And the effective capital, of course, prescribes the limit. Effective capital includes the paid up share capital, share premium account, and reserves and surplus, and then reduced by such provisions as given. Additionally, they shall also be substituted with, they shall also be supported with special resolution. With this concept, it is possible to compensate non-executive directors and independent directors also when the company is not having adequate profits. Now, next question arises is, sir, does sitting fees is included in the, I'm sorry, is sitting fees included in the remuneration payable? No, the definition of remuneration includes everything, including stock options also, but does not. For the purpose of our Companies Act provision, sitting fees is not calculated for the purpose of remuneration. And sitting fees, we are aware, is paid to director, is paid to non-executive directors, independent directors for attending meetings of the board of directors and for attending meetings of the committees of the board of directors. And the limit for sitting fees, of course, we are aware in the year 1956 Act, when it came in, it was fixed at 250 rupees, and for a pretty long time it was 250 rupees. And in the year 1988, when the Amendment Act came in, it was again based on effective capital, where the slabs were revised to 250 rupees, 500 rupees, 750 rupees, and 1000 rupees. And over a period of time, it has got changed to 1000 rupees, and then 2000 rupees, then 5000 rupees, 10,000 rupees, and 20,000 rupees was the last, as per the provisions of the Companies Act 1956, per director per meeting of the board or the committee. Now that has undergone substantial change. Today we find that you can pay sitting fees up to 1 lakh of rupee. 1 lakh of rupee you can pay to all, as sitting fees to your independent directors or to your non-executive directors for attending meetings or meetings of the committee or meetings of the board of directors. This shall also be provided with a clause for payment of minimum remuneration. So even if the company is not having any profit or inadequate profit, the managing director or the whole-time director shall be paid with such amount of minimum remuneration irrespective of the profit element of the company. So this has been the major change. And in respect of CSR, section 135, sir, that has been a very, very vast area where changes have happened. I'm not, having time to discuss the entire thing there, but only one, not two. One is by way of this amendment in the section. Second is a notification issued by government on 22nd January 2021, where the concept of your registration under the ministry MCA site, and then if you're routing it through an NGO, that NGO should have income tax exemption. And if you can even route it through a Section 8 company, where that should also have a income tax exemption. And then the concept of your monitoring agency, international agency, and then overall administrative expenses head limit and all that is all separate from the new notification issued by the ministry on 22nd January 2021, which is coming into force from 1st of April 2021. But in the Amendment Act as it proposed, two major changes happen. What is that is, if there is, companies can set off any excess of CSR amount spent over and above the required limit of 2% in the succeeding financial year. This is one provision. Second, where the amount of CSR does not exceed rupees 50 lakhs, the mandatory requirement of constitution of the CSR committee would not be required. That's a good change. Sir, this is something like a 2020 cricket match, and on one side, today we have to cover two innings. The first innings being on the major changes which have taken place in the Companies Act, which are of a key significance to both the company's board and also the auditors and also the employees like CS, CA, CMA, both in the employment as well in the practice side. We have a second innings also to deal with in front of us today. That is the key significant changes which have taken place in the SEBI LODR regulations 2015. SEBI LODR regulations, listing obligation and disclosure requirements, regulations 2015 is not new to us, because to some extent we can say it's not the old wine in a new bottle. It is a old wine again added with the new wine and then put into a better bottle in a more blended manner. So it is SEBI LODR which came into force from 1st of December 2015 by way of notification of SEBI of 1st of September 2015. That has also undergone, as I said in the beginning, amendments in the Companies Act, as well Mr. Pavan also made a mention in the interest of enabling the corporate grow. The LODR has also undergone substantial amendments. Friends, in fact, I want to make a mention. I forgot to make a mention. Last year, that is the year 2020, and this year also 2021, both Ministry of Corporate Affairs and also the SEBI have provided various relaxations to corporates in view of the prevailing COVID-19, this pandemic, where it is not possible for them to have compliance with many of the requirements. Wherever possible, both the ministry and SEBI have given relaxation, one of them being conduct of the meetings of the board of directors by video conferencing, and also having a few proposals approved which were hitherto restricted under section 179, 180 of the Companies Act, as well conduct of meeting of the shareholders of the company, annual general meeting, extraordinary general meeting, etc., by way of video conferencing or other audio visual means. Even this has also enabled many corporates to comply with the requirements of the Companies Act. In fact, for conducting the annual general meeting, the time limit has been given till December 31st, 2021. Now leave that apart. Now, this SEBI has also made some changes. Some are very, very significant. Some are routine. Some are in the interest of providing a better avenue and a better compliance mechanism to the corporates. And some have become clarificatory in nature. For example, one new definition that has been brought in line with the ICDR 2018 is working day has been defined. What is a working day? Sir, today in the situation of one, we are having the work from home. Every day is a working day, including Sunday. And for corporate employees, every day is a working day. In fact, we work 24/7, irrespective of the fact we get an increment in the first week of April or not. But the Act has remained SEBI LODR has remained silent in respect of the working day definition. So now that has been defined as working day means any day the stock exchange is working. The local stock exchanges, like in our country, the BSE and NSE, the working day of the stock exchanges is working. That is defined as a working day. Next, we are having the compliance requirement based on three factors. One is based on the size. Secondly, it may be based on the size of the company's net worth or the company's constitution of the board of directors or company's turnover. So that various categories of threshold limits are there. And where a company gets security gets listed on the floor of a stock exchange based on the threshold of the net worth. The net worth threshold calculated as per the last working day of the immediately preceding financial year. The market capitalization, if it is there, then it is based on the last working day of the immediately preceding financial year. So where a company is listed and when there is a decline or when there is a fall in the above said net worth level for computing or for fixing its compliance requirement under the LODR, where the company has the net worth threshold limit has fallen below the prescribed limit, even then the company will continue to comply with the requirements for a period of 3 consecutive financial years. Watch carefully. This is an additional requirement cast upon companies which have listed their securities. So if on 1 year your threshold limit is falling below the prescribed limit, you cannot say, sir, sorry, sir, this year my limit is not there. No, if you have been listed earlier based on such threshold limits, you will continue to be listed for a continuous period of consecutive period of 3 financial years. So you will continue to remain listed. Next, in the Companies Act, we have found the word under section 177 where the responsibilities of the, the terms of reference of audit committee is that vigil mechanism. Now in the LODR, we find the word whistleblower mechanism. So to make it in line with the provisions of the Companies Act, the word whistleblower mechanism as appearing in the regulations is substituted with the word vigil mechanism policy as appearing in the Companies Act. We have another compliance requirement is once in 6 months, the company which has listed its securities will submit a exchange certificate to the stock exchange. It is certified by the practicing company secretary, the compliance officer, and also the registrar and share transfer agent also shall be a counter signatory to such certificate. Under regulation 7.3, what does it say? Sir, all the activities related to transfer of securities during the year were in accordance with the provisions of the Act and they have been complied with. So this certificate is required to be submitted twice in a year at a gap of 6 months each, a half year and at the financial year. Now this requirement has been replaced with the requirement of submitting only once and not for every 6 months. That is as on 30th September and as on 31st March has been dispensed with. It has now been substituted with the requirement of submitting it only once in a year. The corporate governance related provisions will have also undergone change, and where a company based on the immediately preceding financial year, it has become or it has fallen within the corporate governance requirement, compliance requirements, it shall ensure such compliance within 6 months from the date it has become necessary for the company to comply with. There's an additional provision added to that is where I told you the same thing, where a company's threshold limit has fallen below, the prescribed limit for compliance under the corporate governance, it shall continue with the same corporate governance requirements for a period of 3 consecutive financial years. Next is the stakeholders grievance committee is a word used there. That stands substituted with the stakeholders relationship committee. That is under the section, what you have under section 178 also. And in respect of corporate governance, major change, a major provision which is added is the risk management committee. Friends, am I going slightly fast? Should we take a, should I slow down or I can accelerate it at Rajdhani speed?
No, sir, you can continue.
Is it okay?
Yes, sir, is it okay? It's perfect.
Right. The next concept is the risk management committee. Now, this risk management committee is a requirement under the SEBI LODR only. In fact, this is required when it was introduced. It was introduced for the top 100 companies. Then it was increased to 500. Now it is increased to 1,000 companies. Now, all companies are required to have a risk management policy, and the risk management policy salient features shall also be mentioned in the Board of Directors report. However, companies and as prescribed under the LODR, I told you this category of 100, 500, 1,000 based on the last year's market cap will necessarily are required to have a risk management committee constituted, and the corporate governance report shall include information regarding the brief description of the terms of reference of the risk management committee and the composition of the committee, names of the members and who is the chairman, etc., and how many meetings were held during the year and how many people attended the meeting, and risk management committee's terms of reference shall also be displayed. In fact, constitution of the risk management committee and the information about that shall also be displayed on the website of the company under regulation 46 of the LODR. Next additional requirement as we find in the corporate governance requirement is where stock options are granted to employees, granted to directors. Complete information about the options granted, that is what is the offer price, what is the exercise price, whether there is any discount, and how many options have been offered, how much of them have been exercised during the year, when will they accrue, when can this person who has been granted options be able to exercise all the options granted to him, what is the exercise period, what is the vesting period, and during the year, how much has been vested or how much has been exercised and at what rate. Complete information in respect of the stock options granted to directors will have to be mentioned in it. This is as a part of the director's remuneration. Next issue is in respect of utilization of the money collected by way of proceeds from IPO or FPO, etc. Now, I have a company, I'm engaged in manufacture of a mobile phone, a readily available example in front of me. And I set up a factory for at a cost of, say, total project cost of 100 crores, 10 crore for the land and about 20 crores for the building and about another 30-40 crores for the machinery, which consists of imported machinery and indigenous machinery, and the balance of 10 crores for the contingency. And the sources of funding is my existing capital is 20 crore, and then I go out for a loan of about 20 crore. My internal accrual is about 10 crore, and then I go for a public issue of 50 crore. So my sources of funds is 100 crores, application of funds is 100 crores. So till the time I exhaust the entire money of the money collected by way of proceeds, every year I have to keep on giving to the shareholders, the stakeholders in the annual report, also in the quarterly or audited, unaudited statements, what is the money collected, what is the source, what is the application it is earmarked, how much is used, how much is balanced. For land, I have earmarked 10 crore. I have paid an advance of 2 crore. Balance 8 crore is payable. Presently, that 8 crore is lying in fixed deposit in the corporate, in the bank. Now, whenever there is any deviation in this, such deviation shall be reported in the auditor's report. Such deviation shall also be the board of directors also will be required to give an explanation to this. Added to that, when there is any change in the projected expenditure and the actual expenditure, and the corporates, whenever such change happens in the newspaper, they will have to publish as a part of the financial reporting. And this shall be monitored, by the monitoring agency. Now, this has to be submitted. This report has to be submitted to the stock exchange within 45 days from the end of each quarter. The monitoring agency shall submit within 45 days from the end of each quarter. Now, the requirement is new. Next is submission of financial results. Financial results has 2-3 major changes which have happened in this. One is where the auditors have given some qualifications, and where there is a qualified report, the impact of the auditor's qualification was required to be reported. Now that has been done away with. However, in respect of financial results, a few new requirements have come in. We'll deal with that when we come to that regulation 30 separately, additionally. Now this business responsibility reporting. Business responsibility reporting, in fact, this was introduced as the last clause, but one clause of the erstwhile listing agreement prior to LODR came in. And then in LODR, it was made mandatory for a few companies, business responsibility reporting. And now that business responsibility reporting has been structured. Recently, it has now been renamed as Business Responsibility and Sustainability Report. And the format has recently been prescribed by Securities and Exchange Board of India. This will be applicable. The existing format will be discontinued and the new format which has been prescribed will be applicable. Instead of the report, report shall describe the initiative. It shall also describe what is the environment initiative, what is the society impact the company, the society impact initiatives the company has taken, and how the project or anything which it is undertaking is going to sustain over a period of time, as well the corporate sustainability over a period of time. all that will be mentioned in the form of business responsibility and sustainability report. In fact, other companies can adopt this voluntarily. I told you the provision relating to risk management committee. Major changes which have happened in respect of this is the risk management committee will have a minimum of 3 directors with majority of the members of the board. With majority of the members of the board and at least 1 independent director. In respect of SR equity shares, 2/3 of the committee shall be independent director. Fine. And the committee's requirement of meeting. Friends, what is happening in the Companies Act where we have the NRC under section 178 and we have also the stakeholders relationship committee under section 178. But the Companies Act has not prescribed how often they have to meet and what is a quorum. As well, LODR also did not contain any provision relating to how often they have to meet and what was the quorum, except in the year 2018. In fact, in the year 2018, various circulars came in, effective 3rd of May, 9th of May, June, and then in September, many circulars came in. Also, the implementation or recommendation of the Uday Kotak committee in respect of few provisions. In fact, the provision relating to directors and officers insurance liability policy to be taken for the top 1,000 companies in respect of their independent directors. All these new provisions came in. The penalty was structured by way of a SOP, standard operating procedure by SEBI in the year 2018. Now, so there it said that the nomination and remuneration committee or stakeholders relationship committee shall meet at least once in a year. And the quorum for that was 2 or 1/3. That apart, now risk management committee, when we apply it here, it shall meet at least twice a year instead of one, and the gap between 2 meetings shall not exceed 180 days. And a quorum for the committee shall be 2 members or 1/3, whichever is here, and at least 1 director shall be present. Watch carefully, it should have a minimum of 3 members with the majority of members being the board. So you can have a non-director also as a member of the risk management committee. But remember, majority of it should be directors and at least 1 independent director should be there. And in respect of meeting, at least 1 director should be there. A non-director member present cannot convene any meeting or conduct any meeting. Terms of reference are provided in the SEBI circular. Now the risk management committee shall be for the top 1,000 companies, I told you. And the risk management committee shall also have the power to seek external guidance or professional or legal advice in any area where it feels that it is necessary for that to have an external opinion for structuring its activity. Say, for example, the risk management committee wants to have a policy for its future foreign exchange transactions, forex transactions for the period of next 1 year or 2 years, or it wants to have a projection done. So it can take the help of somebody. It wants to have another single supplier. The company is dependent on a single supplier. So it wants to have an alternate plan. It wants to take an expert's opinion on how to reduce the risk of being dependent on a single supplier, or majority of my production is going for exports. So I am subjected to the risks of export market. So how I can reduce, how I can mitigate various types of risks. Of course, the organization will have operation risk, the succession risk, the business risk, the finance risk, the employees risk, and risk management is a per se a very different and vast chapter by itself, consisting of how to identify a risk and how to analyze a risk and how to estimate a risk. I have a factory, and in the factory there is a likelihood of a fire. So fire is a risk. So if fire is a risk and I have raw material worth 100 crores, how much of that raw material can be protected or by me? How much of that will be subject to risk? Not all raw material is spread at one place, which will be in a godown and the godown gets fired. No, the raw material is kept across the whole of the factory premises. So at any given point of time, what will be my raw material which is subject to risk? If that be so, out of that raw material, how much of that is funded by a bank? So I must protect the fund provided by the bank by ensuring adequate steps for protecting that raw material. So when my raw material is at risk, my work in progress and the finished products, there is a cascading effect of the risk. So I make an estimate of the risk. I analyze what will be the risk loss. And how much do I have the capacity to bear the risk? More than that, very, very significantly, how do I prevent the risk? Sir, I want to prevent fire in my factory. What do? I keep buckets of water, I keep buckets of sand at various locations. And then I write on top of that in red ink, fire, fire. So in case of fire, use this. Then I conduct mock fire drills in my factory. So periodically, I train my employees. I ensure that there is no smoking carried on within my factory premises. Wherever I store any chemicals which are inflammable, nearby that area, I protect and make sure that no unauthorized entry is having access to. That particular area is kept away from the main area where a possibility of fire may happen. So I prevent the risk. And after preventing the risk, sir, I'm not taking a lecture on the risk management. I only thought I can give some passing references, which are one of the points of reference which can be done in the risk management committee. And then I share the risk. How do I share the risk? I go to an insurance company and then I tell the insurance company, I transfer my risk to the insurance company. One insurance company may not be able to carry on the entire risk. What it may do is it may share that risk with 3 or 4 insurance companies. Additionally, the insurance company may go for reinsurance of the risk it has accepted with a foreign reinsurance company, or in India, you can reinsure with the General Insurance Corporation of India. All right. So that type of risk transfer is also there. So risk management per se is a vast area. Company shall constitute a risk management committee. In fact, the board of directors report will have a reference to the risk management committee as well in the corporate governance report. Next interesting point, something is of concern to us. As a company, and the company has a material subsidiary. Now the company is finding the material subsidiary is not providing adequate return on the investment made by the company. So the company wants to dispose of the investment made by that in the material subsidiary company. Now the existing provision under the regulation 24(5) is you can do it by taking a shareholder's special approval by way of a special resolution, provided where the holding is below 50%. Now, even if it is equal to 50%, now you require the approval of the shareholders. So if you in a material subsidiary, if your investment is up to 50%, earlier you were not required to take approval, and only above 51% you are required to take approval. Now, even if it is up to 50%, you are required to take a special resolution approval of the shareholders. We have another most interesting aspect as company secretaries and also as practicing chartered accountants also, where the provisions related to the Companies Act are dealt with in consultation with them, is the secretarial audit. Secretarial audit coming under the section 204 of the Companies Act. Now, in February 2019, 8th of February 2019, SEBI introduced a concept of secretarial audit shall be made mandatory also for material subsidiary companies of listed entities. And SEBI did not prescribe any format of secretarial audit for the material subsidiary companies of listed entities. SEBI was kind enough to say the format provided under section 204 of the Companies Act, that is that MR3 can continue to be the format for material subsidiary. But what is a new amendment places the material, the secretarial audit report shall form part of the director's report to the shareholders. This secretarial audit report of the listed entity and shall form part of the material subsidiary shall form part of the report to the shareholders. Additionally, SEBI also came out with a requirement of secretarial compliance report to be submitted to the stock exchange, and that shall be submitted within 60 days from the close of the financial year. We are taking a cross reference to section 149 of the Companies Act, read with schedule 4 of the Companies Act, that is the independent directors. Now, independent directors of companies are required to meet at least once in a financial year. Under the Companies Act in Schedule 4, in a company where there are independent directors, these independent directors have to meet at least once in a financial year. And what will they do in that independent directors at least once in a year financial year meeting? One is they will review the performance of the non-executive directors without the presence of the executive directors or any representative of the management. They will also evaluate the performance of the chairperson, and they will also evaluate the quality of the information flowing from the management to the board, and also vice versa. In fact, the provisions relating to this meeting under the Companies Act Schedule 4 is interesting. The Act has not prescribed who will issue the notice of this meeting, of the independent directors meeting. So if in a company there are 5 independent directors, one independent director can be the lead independent director and he can convene this meeting. Next, independent directors need not maintain any minutes for this meeting. What they can do, they can meet, they can have an agenda, they can complete the agenda. They may give an intimation to the board of directors or the chairman of the company. Sir, we had a meeting on this date and we had discussed the agenda as prescribed. Unless they want something to be brought to the knowledge of the board or brought to the knowledge of the chairman and they want some action to be taken by them, then they can send a report to them. The independent directors can, in fact, are eligible for sitting fees for this meeting also, and independent directors are eligible also for other expenses related to the meeting. The company secretary or the management of the company, the board of directors of the company will only facilitate the independent directors to hold this meeting. They will not be present at the meeting. Next. The independent directors meeting once in a year was a requirement under the Companies Act only. Is still a requirement under the Companies Act. This was not part of the LODR. Now, Regulation 25(3) is made that this is being clarified that meeting of the independent directors shall be as prescribed under the Companies Act also. So this meeting is also made mandatory under the LODR. Another requirement is corporate governance report submitted by the listed entities on a quarterly basis. See, this is in fact a report which was being submitted by companies under the erstwhile clause 49 of the erstwhile listing agreement, and same period time limit of within 15 days from the expiry of each quarter. There, of course, the format was different. There, of course, the format was composition of the board of directors, composition of the committees, information provided to the shareholders. Is it applicable, not applicable, and yes or no? There were only 3 columns, 5 columns, and then tick marking yes, no, and then 15th evening, the report is being submitted to the stock exchange. Now, the new corporate governance report format as prescribed under SEBI circular dated 24th September 2015, of course, it has undergone some few changes also, is very exhaustive. It contains information about what are the dates on which the meetings of the board of directors or committees, who are the members of the committees, and on, whether the gap between 2 meetings has exceeded 120 days or the prescribed time limit, right? And various other information which has happened in the company during the quarter is required. Significant information is required to be incorporated. Added to that, material related party transactions, whether they have the approval, requisite approval of the board of directors or the audit committee or the shareholders, of course. MRPTs will require approval of the shareholders, whether it is within the limits prescribed. All that information is required to be submitted within 15 days from the expiry of each quarter to the stock exchange. Now, this time limit of 15 days stands enhanced to 21 days. Maybe along with the shareholding pattern report and the report on the investor grievances and investor complaints received, this report can also go. So this requirement of submission of corporate governance report stands enhanced from 15 days to 21 days. Another most interesting provision is before convening any meeting of the board of directors in which specific decisions were to be taken or are to be taken. For example, declaration of dividend, declaration of a rights issue, declaration of financial results, declaration of any major event, right? Intimation shall be given to the stock exchange. Where there is a company has issued debt securities, specific information. Now, the LODR did not contain any specific provision in respect of consideration of a bonus issue. Now, what happens in companies? See, companies used to have the bonus issue approval by the board of directors, not as a main agenda, but as a part of the any other matter which can be taken with the permission of the chair, such that prior intimation was not required to be informed. So when it was discussed only on the date of the board meeting with the directors, prior intimation was not possible. Otherwise, the requirement was 2 days. So what companies were not giving this advance information? Now that loophole has been dispensed with. When you are considering a bonus issue, make sure that at least 2 working days prior intimation shall be given to the stock exchange. Because what will happen if prior intimation is not given to the stock exchange, and if in a particular board meeting, the board considers a bonus issue, meeting is happening at 11 o'clock, the market is open till 3 o'clock, it will have a volatility because of that decision having been taken. So to prevent this, as a proactive measure, whenever a bonus proposal is likely to be considered by the board of directors of a company, it shall give at least 2 working days. Watch the words, friends, very carefully. 2 working days. I had the experience of once not calculating one particular working day, one particular holiday, and that was a working day for us and holiday for the stock exchange. In calculating the 7 days requirement in one of the erstwhile requirements of the listing agreement, and there was a non-compliance notice by someone, right? So it is better to be careful when you calculate, when you follow the rule. Please check whether it is clear days, working days, or actual number of days. Here the word required used is 2 working days. Saturdays and Sundays are not working days. Other holidays as appearing in the list of holidays in the stock exchanges, of course, recently also been defined, as I mentioned to you in the slide number 7 in the beginning. And this is required to be informed to the stock exchange 2 working days in advance. This will prevent any unnecessary volatility in the script. Next is events or information which shall be informed to the stock exchange. Now, Schedule 3 of the LODR, commencing with respect of Regulation 30 onwards, has prescribed various events which have to be intimated to the stock exchange within 24 hours, which have to be intimated within as soon as possible, which you can intimate within 7 days, which the stock company can devise a policy of intimation, disclosure of intimation and information to the stock exchanges. Based on that policy, it can adopt. One of them statutorily is the unaudited financial results. The unaudited financial results or the dividend, buyback, etc. will have to be informed to the stock exchange within 30 minutes from the conclusion of the board meeting. Now, there are companies where the board meetings are spread more than 1 day. Board meetings are spread more than 1 day. So to provide a clarity, it has been clarified now within 30 minutes from the end of the meeting on the day on which this particular item, whether it is buyback or unaudited or audited financial results or provision, anything related to dividend is discussed by the board of directors. On that particular day on which this agenda item was discussed, within 30 minutes from the time of conclusion of the meeting on that day, it shall be intimated to the stock exchange. Additionally, in respect of IBC, where it has come in, where irrespective of the guidelines for determining the materiality of the disclosure of information as per Schedule 3, stock exchanges are required to be informed of any resolution plan or restructuring plan in relation to any loan or borrowings from any banks or financial institutions. In that case, what is the initial resolution when it was proposed, and what is the amount, and finalization of whether it is a one-time settlement or it is going to be periodical settlement, and how it is going to be implemented, and any other salient features of this particular resolution plan, all these will have to be informed to the stock exchange. Next. Companies usually have meetings of analysts and financial experts, financial analysts. Usually these meetings take place after every quarter board meeting. So now that group conferences are also made after the quarterly results, the investors call, analysts call are taken, right? And the requirement here is the transcript of such call shall be made available on the website of the company within 5 working days, and it shall also be submitted to the stock exchanges, and the presentation which is made available to the analysts will also be submitted to the stock exchange, and it shall also be available on the website, which can be retrieved as per the retrieval policy of the company. Another provision related to any appointment of a new director. Appointment of a new director, what the change has come in is, it is not necessary to disclose the beneficial shareholding of the director in any other companies. It is enough if you only disclose the beneficial interest of the shareholder only in the company in which he is appointed. Other companies, it is not required to be disclosed. Next, there has been an exercise which is conducted on a half-yearly basis, again with the practicing company secretary certification on 30th of September, as on 30th September and as on 31st March, about under regulation 40, sub-regulation 9, that all the instruments lodged for transfer, transmission, etc. were acted upon rightly, and there was no delay, and the compliance requirement in respect of transfer and transmission have been duly complied with. And this report is submitted to the stock exchange on a half-yearly basis, twice in a year, within 30 days from the end of each half year. Now that has been done away with. It is now required to be presented only on an annual basis, as also the regulation 7, sub-regulation 3. Next is dividend distribution policy. Dividend distribution policy concept was introduced in the year 2016. It was made applicable to the top 500 companies initially. Now that has been extended to 1,000 companies. This policy need not be part of the annual report, but this shall be uploaded on the website of the company, providing a link to the dividend distribution policy. Next, annual general meetings, results of voting at the annual general meeting shall be informed to the stock exchange within 48 hours is the word used in the regulation 44.3. So if I have a meeting at night, AGM conducted at evening 7 o'clock, now because if I have the AGM conducted say evening at 6 o'clock, and second day before 6 o'clock, I will have to disclose this result. That has been reduced and it has been substituted with the word 2 days instead of 48 hours. When a company changes its name, we have seen also under the company, sir, we have also seen under the LODR that a company can change its name on a few conditions. That is, not less than 50% of the revenue shall be from the business area where the company proposes to have its name linked to, or not less than 50% of the assets shall be of that particular business segment. And before the company applies to register of companies for the name change, name availability, it shall also take approval of the stock exchange. That requirement was there. And then it shall also take approval of the shareholders. Now, additionally, a certificate shall also be, a certificate from a chartered accountant shall also be obtained, and that shall also be sent along with the notice convening the meeting of the shareholders as an explanatory statement. Together with the explanatory statement, the chartered accountant certificate shall also be submitted, which is in compliance with regulation 45.1, that in respect of the revenue earned or in respect of the new activity or the asset of that particular new area related to which the name is proposed to be changed. This is a new requirement. Next, auditing of financial statements of overseas subsidiaries. It is required that shall be placed on the website. And where it is not required to be audited in the country overseas abroad, then you only give an unaudited financial statements. Additionally, also, if that is not in the English language, provide a necessary translation thereof in the English language. And website will have the additional requirement of secretarial compliance report, I told you, and a policy regarding the materiality of the information. And advertisements in newspapers, the listed entity will not be required to publish in respect of the newspapers one notice of the board meeting where financial results will be declared, and any statement or variations in the utilization of IPO funds, I told you, not only for the public issue, also for the rights issue. And effective January 2008, it also covers the rights issue and any other proceeds collected by the company by issuance of any other securities. In fact, that is included in the SEBI circular dated 2018, also by way of any preferential issues offered by the company. Friends, I would like to leave the floor open for a quick interaction. Any poses, any questions? And as I told you, let us not make it a one-way traffic, but considering the gamut of changes which have happened in the LODR and also in the Companies Act, of course, I have taken only the most significant one, which as the auditors we will be concerned with, and as the corporate company secretaries or chartered accountants or employees or finance managers, CFO or CMA, other professionals, I've taken only the significant aspects. I told you in the beginning, this is a learning process for me. So I leave the floor open for, but before I say that, I want to put up my slide. The bad news is that time flies, not that 5:30 to 7 of today, every day, because we are the pilot. So every day before the time flies, let's roll up our sleeves and find out something new I have added to the kitty on top, some way of exchange of ideas, some way of reading, some way of talking to somebody. I have gained something new because there is no elevator to success. This slide I use in all my presentations. You have to take only the stairs. So gradually over a period of time, I welcome ideas from all the participants. Stop sharing. I know it has been a pretty long, non-stop Rajdhani, like 1 week, tuck, 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 in the past 90 minutes. Pawan sir is laughing, so I'm sure that he has been kind enough to listen to it, and I would request him to throw his viewpoints on my humble presentation I have expressed today. Request you to save my number, sir. Gyan Station can do all that, and I don't find any subject-related question. How relieved I am, Pawan sir.
सर सचिन तेंदुलकर ने बैटिंग करने के बाद में कोई 3rd या 4th नंबर का बैटिंग करने वाला आके सेंचुरी मार ही नहीं सकता है. And I am the last man. I am the 11th man. So after your presentation, I am just a spectator now to grasp the things which you made us learn and which you presented through your presentation. Nothing to add.
I'm a learner, sir. Thank you.
Sir, we have one question from Manju Mundraji. What is the impact of working day? What is the impact of definition of working day?
See, working day was not defined in the regulation earlier. Even in ICDR, in fact, working day is everywhere referred to. So that reference is now brought in. Impact is, for example, Mahavir Jayanti, we think that is a working day for us, we work. But stock exchanges does not. So when you have to calculate the working days, you have to intimate to the stock exchange, you have to exclude that Mahavir Jayanti. And Good Friday, which always falls on a Friday, there is no option on it. And the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the 3 days are lost when you have to give any intimation. So that's the reason when you calculate the number of days for compliance with any requirement, it is essential to know what is a working day. Additionally, my dear friends, Companies Act in respect of complying with the provision related to annual general meeting convening. Annual general meeting convening can be held, can be done on any day which is a working day, which can be a Sunday also, which can be a public holiday also. You can hold the AGM on Diwali. You can hold the AGM on Guru Nanak Jayanti. You can hold it on Christmas, but you can't hold it on 15th of August, 26th of January, 2nd of October, which are declared as national holiday. So to have a clarity on all this word term working day is defined. I faced this problem of not calculating one particular holiday because we were working. As I made even in the humorous tone attached, we work all days with less increment. But on the other side, when you have to intimate, you take care of only the working days of the stock exchange. Deepthi Jain madam is ready with her question.
I request all the participants to please post any other question, or they can directly unmute themselves and ask the question from our learned speaker. So
if I can go back to, if you allow me to go back to my slide.
yes, sir.
And, I left in this slide. So here I just want to draw the attention of my friends. This man is looking at the globe, keeping his eyes and ears wide open. Of course, we presume his mouth is closed. He talks less, right? So we presume that he is able to get whatever he wants from the world in front of him at the press of a button, just as the situation today available. We professionals are today at such a situation. We keep our eyes and ears wide open, welcome ideas, understand, grasp the ideas, implement the ideas, and then act on the ideas. Maybe suno sabki karo apni is secondary, but be a recipient of the ideas in such a way that you are having a wider option in front of you to choose the best available for you. And
Yes.
yeah, I may be permitted to present my best slide of the presentation.
Sir, we would also, as always, as in last presentation, also we had some motivational, very inspiring thoughts from your side. This time also we would like to have inspiring words from you.
While I say that, I repeat, I'm a learner, as Pavan sir also said that we are all learning. Friends, the words of motivation for all of us as professionals, when you consider it is compliance, please don't keep anything for compromise. In fact, on compliance management, when I give a lecture, my first session is always, do you think compliance is costly? If you think it is costly, try non-complying for some time, then you will know the result, whether it is costly or not. And compliance does not have, incidentally, compliance doesn't have Sunday or compliance doesn't have holiday. Compliance is a 7 concept. Pavan sir is agreeing to that.
Yes, sir.
Be compliance oriented, but at the same time, be practical. My managing director is very busy and thinking how we can import the raw material for keeping the production on. At that time, you can't go and tell him, sir, under regulation 23, you have to convene a shareholders meeting before you buy the raw material. The factory is having workers waiting for raw material. And you can't at 6 o'clock say, go and tell the MD, sir, you require shareholders approval. Night 10 o'clock, you can't convene the meeting, and 12 o'clock shift, you can't provide raw material. One. So where you have to be commercial as a link to the compliance requirement. And that is possible when you are having your planning well done and when your calendar is structured based on the flow of events. And it's a bit of humble suggestion, compliance oriented and being corporate commercial perspective. Added to that, Pavan sir being the vice chairman of WRC, he knows he has to handle various stakeholders. So much so, the corporates also have to handle various stakeholders. Be it an employee, be it the directors, be it the investor, be it the banker, be it the lender, and be it even the debenture holder. Added to that, be it the regulator. Sir, the world doesn't end there, because the government has given you land for you to produce glasses and sell the glasses, make a profit out of that, and not to keep that profit with you. You have to share a portion of that profit with the society which has given you that land. That's how section 135 has cropped in corporate social responsibility, right? So your compliance, your requirement of taking care of the needs of all the stakeholders is also coming in the list of primarily important activities to be carried on. So if I must summarize, one is remain compliance oriented, remain at the same time objective oriented, remain at the same time protecting the interest of all. And I must thank Gyan Station for this wonderful opportunity for exchanging these ideas. And the cherry on the ice cream is presence of Pawan sir in this session. And I move on to the last slide, and the best of it I can feel. Thank you very much, friends. Thank you. Thanks again.